How's it going, everybody? So it's Friday night. You're probably all out at the bar or at the club enjoying your lives, and I don't blame you. but I was just watching this Louis Theroux documentary, and well, to those of you who don't know who Louis Theroux is, he's this guy. He's like a British journalist. He worked for the BBC too, and he does all these really interesting documentaries on different like off the wall topics. Like he did one on UFOs, he did one on the African hunting party, he did one on the black nationalists, he did one on professional wrestlers. He's done them on all kinds of topics. Anyway, so I just watched this one that he did called The Edge of Life, where he essentially goes into these hospitals and he's sort of, I guess you'd call it interviewing, but he's, at least if nothing else, he's documenting these people who are in really bad situations. Some of them have terminal cancer, some of them have had strokes. The majority of them are in vegetative states. And anyway, so I was watching this Louis Theroux documentary, you know, The Edge of Life, and yeah, it really got my wheels spinning. You know, I don't know where my head has been. I don't know why I've been in this place, this sort of entitled place, I guess you could call it, where I sort of assume that I'm going to be around in 10 years or in 20 years or in whatever, 30 years, 40 years. I hope to God that I am. Don't get me wrong, I really do. But the fact is, there are no guarantees in life in general, and therefore there's no guarantee that I'm going to be around, you know, tomorrow even. You know, I could die in my sleep, or I could get hit by a bus, or anyway, that's not the point. Again, I hope to God that nothing bad happens in my life and I have a great long life, but it just sort of hit me from having watched that documentary that I don't know how long I'm going to be around. Nobody knows how long they're going to be around. And so I just realized that I'm pretty much not sharing as much as I should. Well, basically, I've got a lot of knowledge in my brain that can be very useful to a lot of you out there, and I don't know why I've selfishly been just keeping it all to myself. You know, maybe at a certain point I thought that by not sharing it, it was giving me some kind of competitive advantage, but again, the reality is one day I'm not going to be around, and I'd rather give the information to you guys, and hopefully some of you can use it in a positive, beneficial way. Anyway, so again, Napoleon Hill, who's kind of the forefather of the modern self-help positive thinking movement. So to any of you who have read Think and Grow Rich, you probably have gone further down that rabbit hole and discovered that he has another book called Outwitting the Devil. So he also had this other thing called The Science of Personal Achievement. Originally it was like on audio cassette. So it feels really weird when you do run across Science of Personal Achievement, because you're like literally listening to it on a Walkman, so it feels like, you know, you're in the 90s or you're in the 80s, or I think they make it on CD today. Anyway, the point is, so in The Science of Personal Achievement, Napoleon Hill, he lays out that essentially there's only 9 categories of motivation for human beings. And again, Napoleon Hill, he interviewed about 25,000 people to develop some kind of a philosophy for success. He wanted to understand, well, why are certain people in this group successful and everybody else is essentially losers? He wanted to understand, well, what is the difference between the winners and the losers? So he did 25,000 case studies. Again, that's his number. He did 25,000 case studies, really digging in, trying to understand what separated the winners from the losers. And right, so he developed this whole philosophy, and he determined that every action that a human being takes ultimately falls into one of these 9 categories. So everything that you do, if you take the time to analyze yourself, you'll find that this is true. Everything you do ultimately is a variation that lands in one of these 9 categories. And that's a really beneficial tool to yourself, because if you know what category of motivation you're in other words, you can see yourself like, oh, okay, that's what's driving me, that's what's motivating me. Then all of a sudden you have more leverage over yourself. You go, okay, so that's the thing that I'm chasing. Now I know. Well, anyway, so out of these So anyway, there's 9 of these categories. They're like the Napoleon Hill 9 motives of human behavior. Again, you can find it for yourself if you dig deep enough. If you go deep enough down the rabbit hole, you can find it for yourself in the Science of Personal Achievement. Anyway, so 7 of these categories are positive categories. 2 of them are negative. So you've got love, sex, and yeah, it's important to make that distinction that love and sex are 2 separate categories of motivation or behavior. So you've got love, sex, then you have desire for material wealth or the accumulation of material wealth. So that's everything that, that's money, that's cars, that's houses, that's clothes, that's all that stuff. And Napoleon Hill, he referred to those 3, he called them the big 3. So love, sex, desire for or accumulation of material wealth, those are the big 3. And he said that those 3 dictate 80% of all human behavior. So 8 out of 10 people you meet, based on Napoleon Hill studies, is chasing love, sex, or the accumulation of material wealth. And if you take the time to analyze people, you find that that's pretty accurate. So, okay, but those 3 are still positive. So love, sex, desire for or accumulation of material wealth. Then you've got freedom of body and mind. So that one, it takes different forms. Again, there's different variations. Different pursuits, serve as different variations, but ultimately they land under the umbrella of one of these 9 categories. So freedom of body and mind, that's the 4th one. So that could be bodybuilding, that could be yoga, that could be meditation, any kind of spiritualism, not religion, but spiritualism. So freedom of body and mind, Buddhism perhaps. Okay, so anyway, you got freedom of body and mind. Then you have, let's see here, so that's 4. So 5, you've got self-preservation. So that one is just the basics: food, shelter, water. That one's kind of obvious. So food, shelter, water, so just basic self-preservation. Then you have, let's see here, then you've got perpetuation of life after death. So that's, people who are living their lives a certain way to get into heaven or to avoid hell, essentially. So that's like, not spiritualism, but that's religion specifically. So in other words, perpetuation of life after death. Oh, if I don't use any 4-letter words for the next 60 years, then I'm going to heaven. If I don't have premarital sex, I'm going to heaven. If I live my life by this code, I'm going to heaven. Okay, so perpetuation of life after death. That's a motivator. Okay, so far we got love, sex, desire for or accumulation of material wealth, freedom of body and mind, perpetuation of life after death, then self-preservation, food, water, shelter, that's 6. Then the 7th one, which is the final positive one, is self-expression and recognition. Now Napoleon Hill claimed that was the most worthwhile motivator or pursuit out of all of these 9. So self-expression and recognition. So that is, the arts, being an actor, being a musician, being a painter, being an artist of any kind, making this video right now, expressing your opinions, any kind of self-expression, stand-up comedy, public speaking, whatever your thing is. So self-expression and recognition. So those are the 7 positive ones. So love, sex, desire for or accumulation of material wealth, perpetuation of life after death, so the afterlife, heaven, hell, self-preservation, food, water, shelter, self-expression and recognition, freedom of body and mind. Those are the 7 positive ones. So then the last 2 of these 9 are the negative ones. So you've got revenge, and if you have, lived any life at all, you know very well that some people will go pretty damn far out of their way to get you back if you end up getting the upper hand in a given situation, or if they feel like you've wronged them somehow. Some people will go out of their way pretty damn far for months and months, or sometimes years, sometimes their entire life, because of some grievance that they've decided, was your fault, and so now they're trying to sue you in small claims and whatever. So or you've probably been on the other side of that fence too. I mean, I have myself, like where I thought some guy screwed me out of money, and I'm trying to, get what I feel like I'm owed. My time is valuable. It's like, okay, so you screwed me over. You didn't give me the money that you owed me. Okay, well, let's take it up with the labor board. Let's see how much is involved in getting what I feel like I'm owed here. So anyway, revenge, that's a negative one. You're basically just wasting your life and your time. And ultimately, your time is one of your most valuable assets. And then the last one is fear, general fear. So fear, again, there's thousands and thousands of different variations. So fear of premature aging. So yeah, fear of premature aging, fear of premature death, fear of illness, fear of criticism. That's why a lot of people never open their mouth, because, oh, well, what if they don't like me? Or for instance, like to performers and artists, stage fright, there you go. So what is that really? Stage fright, that's fear of criticism. Oh, well, what if they boo me? Well, then they boo you. So try again later, Anyway, so yeah, the fear one, the general blanket of fear, that can take all kinds of forms. Again, fear of illness, fear of death, fear of rejection, fear of criticism, whatever. So again, remember, all of these can take thousands and thousands and thousands of different forms. But if you take the time to really take a hard look at yourself, you'll realize that what you're spending your time on in your life ultimately falls into one of these categories. And when you have that leverage over yourself, just knowing that, oh, this is the thing that's driving me, this is the thing that I'm chasing all the time, whether it be money, or whether it be sex, or whether it be fame, so self-expression and recognition. Once you know what the thing is that you're chasing, it makes life easier, because you're able to exclude everything else. You're able to say no that much quicker to everything else that doesn't have to do with stuff that lands in the category that's motivating you. So Napoleon Hill, what am I saying? Napoleon Hill, he used this very specific term that he called your definite major purpose. So he said one of the biggest distinguishing factors between these people out of these 25,000 case studies who were winners versus losers is that the winners always had a clearly defined definite major purpose. So if you don't have a definite major purpose, which is essentially just, the thing that your goal in life, the thing you want, if you don't have a definite major purpose, this tool, the 9 Napoleon Hill motives, it's also really useful, because if you don't have a purpose and you realize that ultimately the tens of thousands of variation of lifestyle and behavior land in one of these 9 categories, well, when you realize that, of course, you got to take the time to analyze for yourself and realize that that's actually true. But you can just pick one. You can go, okay, so out of these 9 categories, ultimately realizing that everything falls into one of those categories in one direction or another, well, which one is the one that is the most interesting to me? Perpetuation of life after death. Do I want to spend my life trying to potentially create, the life of your dreams in the afterlife instead of creating the life of your dreams in this life? Self-expression and recognition. Do you want fame? Desire for or accumulation of material wealth? What do you want? You want 6 mansions, 2 Ferraris? Like, is that what you're after? Sex? Let's get real. Like, if you want to get laid more than anybody else, that's what some people are after. Love, stable relationship, marriage. That one's tough these days with all these commitment phobes out there. Anyway, so this thing, the Napoleon Hill 9 major motives, super, super, super beneficial. So I hope this was helpful. And I'm going to make it a point to start sharing my knowledge more, because I'm realizing more with every day that goes by that I don't know how long I'm going to be around. Even though I'm technically still young, I know I'm an old fuck. So, 29 is not what it used to be. Anyway, so I'm going to start sharing my information more, all the knowledge I've spent all these good years in my youth accumulating. I'm going to start sharing all that knowledge more with you guys and you ladies, because it's not doing any good inside my brain, other than for me personally. But the truth is, the more I help you guys, the more that helps me in my own way, and you ladies again. So I hope you're all having a great night, and I will talk to you soon. All right, take care.